The Emancipation Proclamation was this blanket order. Come to me and you will be free. Said to the slaves, get to the U.S. lines. At that point, you are automatically free. And slaves came by the tens of thousands.
While the Civil War continued, Lincoln had a personal battle to fight. Depression had continued to dog him. It was made worse by the tragic death of his beloved son, Willie. He found little support in his wife, whose violent temper and own depression caused him immense pain. But Lincoln knew the needs of his country had to come first. By 1863, the Union Army's fortunes had started to improve. Grant's troops gained control of the Mississippi River. But that summer, the Confederate Army succeeded in crossing back into Pennsylvania. It was to be the high water mark of the Confederacy in the Civil War.
This was an actual invasion of the United States by the Confederacy. If this had not been halted, think about the impact on the morale of the people of the North. If the government can't stop a northern state from being overrun, the state of Pennsylvania, then how can you expect the government to wage a successful war, a war that was becoming ever more costly in terms of human lives?
The Union Army engaged their enemy outside the small town of Gettysburg. It was to be the largest military engagement in the history of the Western Hemisphere. 170,000 soldiers clashed in a horrific battle which claimed 50,000 casualties. But after 3 days and nights, the Union Army was victorious. The Confederates fled back across the Potomac.
From that point on, the Confederacy is on the defensive. It will never fight an aggressive campaign again.
After the battle, Gettysburg became a giant memorial, next to which lay a small, formal cemetery.
The scene is sobering at best. Bodies that had been left to the elements had been hastily covered in shallow graves. It was clear that lots of people had lost their lives in this place not too long before. Gettysburg was a burial ground, not only in the formal sense of nice graves and rows, but it was a burial ground in terms of the humanity that was wasted in this place.
Lincoln was invited to the dedication of the cemetery and was profoundly affected by what he saw. The depth and power of his feelings were echoed in his address to the people who had gathered there.
The organizers of the occasion simply wanted a few ordinary sentences from him. And that was what he gave him, a few ordinary sentences, but sentences of such remarkable eloquence that they summed up the entire meaning of the war.
Last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth.
What he says in the Gettysburg Address is that this is a new nation we're standing in now. The new nation that will go forth is a nation committed to human liberty and human freedom in ways that were more significant, more bold than the nation of the past. He set out the vision of America for the 21st century.
After the Battle of Gettysburg, the Union Army pressed home its advantage. The Confederates struggled on until April the 9th, 1865, when their commander, General Robert E. Lee, was forced to surrender. But in the months before, Lincoln had been planning the future of America. It was a future in which, he believed, there should be malice toward none.
The last speech of Abraham Lincoln's life, he talked about the possibility of providing citizenship rights to African Americans, especially those African Americans who had participated as soldiers in the war.
An actor called John Wilkes Booth heard that speech. A Confederate sympathizer, he was infuriated at Lincoln's plans and regarded the president as dangerous. The war now over, Lincoln allowed himself a rare evening of relaxation at the theater. But a night of celebration for the president was to end in tragedy for America. John Wilkes Booth had entered the presidential box and shot Abraham Lincoln in the back of the head.
It is a direct result of Abraham Lincoln's evolution to emancipation, beyond emancipation towards citizenship for African Americans, that led to Wilkes Booth's assassination of Abraham Lincoln. It was directly tied to his death.
Abraham Lincoln, the first president to be assassinated in office, left America a reunited nation, but a shattered country. 600,000 soldiers were killed in the Civil War, and vast swathes of America lay in ashes. The country had to be rebuilt, but without Lincoln, the United States would have ceased to exist completely.
He kept the Union together, and above all, he sets us that dramatic example that we are still a republic in which the humblest can aspire to rise to the highest position in the land. He not only embodies the American dream, in many ways, Abraham Lincoln is the American dream.